Welcome back. Libya's national oil company says it has regained control of 4 vitally important export terminals in the east of the country. The facilities had been at the center of recent fighting. Afterwards, forces loyal to the military strongman General Khalifa Haftar, who is opposed to the internationally recognized government, said they were taking control of exports from the terminals. The dispute led to output being halted and a sudden drop in desperately needed oil revenues. But the Libyan state oil company says exports have now resumed. 1,000 refugees from Namibia are facing a deadline that expires today to agree to voluntary repatriation after fleeing to neighboring Botswana over 20 years ago. Authorities in Botswana say they intend to go ahead with repatriating displaced people who originated from Namibia's Kareem Strip, following a long-standing agreement supervised by the United Nations Refugee Agency. About 3,000 people from the Kareem Strip fled to Botswana in the 1990s during a secessionist uprising, but most of them have since returned home. Amnesty International is, however, urging Botswana not to repatriate the remainder by force if a real risk remains that they will face persecution back home. Meanwhile, Burundian refugees are returning home as part of an ongoing voluntary repatriation program by the UN Refugee Agency and the Burundian government. 48 Burundian refugees were repatriated from Kenya following the tripartite agreement. Burundi has been unstable since 2015 when President Pierre Nkurunziza decided to seek a third term in office that his opponents said was unconstitutional.
Following a tripartite repatriation agreement between Burundi, Kenya and the United Nations Refugee Agency, UNHCR. 48 former Burundian refugees are back home in the capital, Bujumbura, from Kakuma refugee camp in Kenya. Some of the returning refugees who had fled the country in 2015 said they had willingly chosen to participate in this voluntary repatriation exercise.
I volunteered to come back home after I tried to look for a job at the United Nations with no success. I even looked for menial jobs, maybe even work in a farm in Kenya, but it was impossible. So I was just idle, waiting to receive food ration from the UNHCR. The rations were even not enough to feed a whole family.
Upon their arrival, the returnees are taken to a transit center where they receive food assistance as well as an envelope of $60 per adult and $48 per child before being reintegrated into their villages. Gilbert Ndaisenga fled in 2015, fearing for his family's safety when conflicts broke out. He decided to return home to his family in Burundi. Now he has settled back in his village in Kirundo, northern Burundi.
I first asked my family about the security situation back at home. I spoke to them on the phone, and my family reassured me. Those who returned a year ago have not harvested their crops and have been farming with no problems. If those who returned can live with no problems, then why should we be the ones facing problems?
187 Burundian refugees are expected to be repatriated from Kenya until the 25th of July in 4 single flights every Wednesday. Burundi has been unstable since 2015 when President Pierre Nkurunziza decided to seek a third term in office that his opponents said was unconstitutional. The resulting violence has left hundreds dead and forced at least 400,000 people into exile. However, the Burundian government says there is peace and stability and that those who fled the country should return.
Kareem Waris, Nigeria's youngest hyper-realism artist, recently came to prominence after drawing a portrait of the French President Emmanuel Macron in 2 hours, which he presented to the French leader who was on a 2-day visit to Nigeria. The 11-year-old says he has been drawing since he was 7 years old and that his artwork is inspired by people and the environment.
11-year-old Kareem Waris is working on a portrait of his mother, using a photo taken during her youthful days for reference. With his charcoal pencil, he creates marks that he smoothens with his finger to form shades that bring out an illusion of depth and textures. This is one of Kareem's many hyperrealism works. Kareem says he took an interest in art when he was younger.
I've been drawing since 7 years old at school with my friends. I could remember I draw Super Striker comics inside 20 Leaves book. So I started drawing professionally at the age of 8-9 years old.
Hyperrealism is a contemporary genre of art that produces hand-drawn images meant to appear like high-resolution photographs. Kareem, who lives with his mother, was discovered by a local artist who noticed his sketching skills and invited him to hang out with other artists.
I was shy to stay in their midst. I stood at the corner and participated with them. So my boss sister saw me that day and she was very surprised and showed my boss that look what this small boy drew. Then my boss said he's impressed with my drawings, that instead of playing around, I started learning. So he taught me how to shade, paint, do whatever.
In 10 minutes, closing.
Last week, Kareem presented a portrait to French President Emmanuel Macron at the Africa Shrine when Mr. Macron visited the Nigerian Afrobeat nightclub. The French president was on a 2-day official visit to the West African country, and Kareem wanted to give him a gift.
Fantastic job. Thank you very much.
Kareem soon became an online sensation after photos of his portrait were posted on the internet. As a result, many people are now reaching out to buy his work and commission new projects that sell for between $220 to $270. Kareem plans to develop his future career in art and hopes that his work will one day be on display galleries in the country and abroad.
That's it on Network Africa. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Semi Tokwe Fagwini.